Today's video is going to be epic! In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can upgrade your Umbraco V7 or V8 website and take it to Umbraco V10 or 9 or one of the other versions. The big point is we're going to go from .NET Framework to .NET Core, V5, 6, whatever you want to call it. Now recently I have done this on my own website. Now unfortunately there is no magic button where you click something and it magically upgrades. There is going to be a number of refactorings, and depending on how big your website is, how many plugins you've got installed, will completely depend on how long this process is going to take you. Yes, it is going to be a ball ache. However, the steps that I'm going to outline in this video is going to make that ball ache as marginal as possible. So it's going to be super amazing. It's probably going to be quite in depth. We're going to learn a lot. I'm jazzed for this one. Now, if you haven't come across my videos and you love Umbraco, or you simply love this face, and who doesn't love this face, what I recommend you do is smash the subscribe button. I know straight away that most people watching this don't subscribe because I watch the analytics. So if you keep watching these videos, this is your chance to shine. Hit subscribe, become a legend, and as a little treat, I'm going to show you a picture of a little kitten. Now, that was all cute and nice, but enough of that crap. Let's get on and actually build our website and upgrade some shizzle. Over the years, I've done about 100 upgrades. Now, some of these upgrades have been simple, others have taken months, and halfway through, I've nearly lost the will to live. Now, one of the biggest differentiators between the easy ones and the hard ones is basically having a plan and sticking to that plan. Now, trust me, if you're trying to just start an upgrade and you decide to upgrade everything at once, you're going to be hit with a million errors. It's going to be frustrating. Probably by the time you fix all of those errors, the website's not going to work and you're just going to turn into the Hulk. Now, to prevent that and to keep us all mellow and chanté, what we can do is come up with a plan. And this is the plan that I follow for pretty much any upgrade, regardless of CMS. Now let's go through the plan. So number one, first thing is back up all the things. So go into your production environment, make sure all your media library items are copied, the production database is copied, go to your local, make sure your local database is copied, then make sure all of your code is committed and pushed into source code. You always want to make sure that you can revert steps, you can trash things without worry. Now the next step is to install Umbraco V9, V10, whichever version you want to upgrade to. Now, what I like to do in these upgrades is start with a vanilla base build of Umbraco V10, then I'm going to copy all the bits from my old CMS instance into the V10 instance and slowly upgrade the site. Now, I find doing this and doing, say, like one page at a time means that I'm not going to be overwhelmed with a number of errors and things not working. So it means that I can just have a focus, fix a few problems at a time, make sure I get a page or a section working, rinse and repeat until eventually the whole site will be upgraded. And it's much easier to tackle problems a few at a time rather than be confronted with trying to upgrade everything at the same time and be hit with 5,000, 6,000 compiler errors. Nobody wants that. Now the first step in doing an Umbraco upgrade is to upgrade the database. Now between V7, V8 to V9, V10, the database hasn't changed that much. Fundamentally, it's just the code, .NET Framework to .NET Core, which changed. So what we can do is take our old database, bung it into our new vanilla Umbraco 10 instance, rerun the upgrade process, and then voila, our upgrade database will work. Now, as part of this process, you want to test that you can log in as well. So we'll go through the mechanisms of this. However, if you've got a site like mine, which was built in Umbraco V7, what happened between V7 and V8 is there's some login changes. So when you upgrade to V9, there's a good chance that your password will not work anymore. So potentially you may need to upgrade your admin password going through the process. There's a really easy step to do this. I'll walk you through that, not a problem. Now, after we've got our database upgraded, we can log into the CMS. Now is the time to start copying our code from our old repository into the new one. And what I recommend is we do this one step at a time. So typically what I find is that on a home page, we have lots of connectors. We're talking to loads of different sort of objects throughout the CMS. So what we're going to do is say, take something like the content page, which has, a bit of rich text, not much else in it, one of your simplest pages, and we want to concentrate on just getting that working in the new environment. So this involves, copying the controller over, copying your view over, copying some view models over. We want to keep it bare basic. We want to get that working. Now, after we've got that working, what we want to do is then enable the header and footer. So once we get the header and footer working, we can then work and move on to the next page. And on we go until eventually, after we've done all our recompiling, all our tests and fixes, one day we'll wake up and our whole website will be upgraded. And trust me, this process might sound simplistic. You might just want to go for gold and upgrade everything at once. But trust me, if you try to do that, you'll be back following this step sooner rather than later. This is a voice of experience who has done it many times. So now we have the plan in process. Let's go through the steps of how you're going to upgrade everything. We are going to start things off by doing a little bit of Sql Prep work. So what we're going to do is fire up SQL Management Studio, SMMS. What we want to do is get our existing V7, V8 database, make a backup of it, and then create a new version, a new database for our new website to use. So what we're going to do, as you can see here, is I've got a database and it's called JDJ. So simply click on it, go to the task view. Within task view, you can see that we have the option to backup. Follow that process along, write it to disk, and then we'll have this backup file. Next, what we want to do is create a new database. So let's call this V10. It's always good to make the owner SA so we don't encounter SQL permission errors. Then what we want to do is right click on that database, go to tasks, go to restore, click on database, click on this little device tab, click on this little ellipses. From here, find our database file that we just created, our restore file, click OK and all that kind of stuff. And then you'll have a database which we can upgrade. The next step is to create a blank instance of a V9 or a V10 site. So I'm not going to cover all the steps of doing that. I was just randomly browsing on YouTube and I found this amazing tutorial which describes everything exactly. Now, I'm not biased or anything because this video has got nothing to do with me. I mean, let's be granted, that is one hell of a sexy dude right there. Hella sexy. So, this amazing dude writing his amazing tutorial, and the website is johndjones.com, not related to me whatsoever. If you go down here, you will see that we've got the steps of how to install a site. Now, what we're going to do basically is, through the command prompt, install a template, and then we can install this new project. So we can install our project via a terminal. Let's just copy and paste that line. So as you can see, we've now created a project called My Project. Now, I recommend you use the naming conventions and the namespaces that you want to use for your production environment. So we can now just do a .NET run eventually. So let's have a quick look at the file. So as you can see here, C drive, My Project. Now we've got all our sample sites, we've got like all this vanilla stuff, and if we open up our applications.settings, you can see that our Umbraco DB is null. So what we want to do is get our connection string, paste our connection string in here. So remember, this is our V8, V7, whichever database we just created. And now what we want to do is that .NET run, fire that bad boy up. Before the Umbraco upgrade wizard even touches your database, it is going to ask you to do one single thing. And that is, you need to prove to the upgrade wizard that you are a powerful person and you have the right permissions to upgrade this database. So basically, in essence, you just basically need to log into CMS. So after changing the connection strings and launching the website again, you're going to see this screen. Now this screen, it may look like the normal login page. Do not be fooled. For the eagle-eyed out there, we can see that within the URL we've got this authorized upgrade. So whenever you see this in the URL, you know that you're interacting with the upgrade wizard rather than that classic Umbraco login page. So in order to continue and upgrade the database, we need to put in our username and password. Oh no, oh no, wah. As you can see, I've tried to log in and I haven't been allowed. Now the reason why I haven't been allowed is because my password has been salted differently compared to say like a V8 site, V9 site. So my database originally came from V7, and I basically use something called the Use Legacy Enable mode in the membership provider. So when you upgrade, if your username and password doesn't work like mine, what I suggest you do is go through the process and reset your admin password. After you've reset your password, you can then log into the CMS and reset everyone else's password. The easiest way to reset the admin password is to force Umbraco to trigger the installation wizard. Going through the installation process will then allow you to add in some new admin details. We can then trick the installation wizard to upgrade our existing database. That's not going to actually do anything, and all it will do is just reset our username and password. So let's see this in action. So first what we're going to do is open up our solution, go to our app settings.json, and then what we want to do is delete our connection string. So within the connection strings, Umbraco DB, DSN, delete everything. Now what we can do is fire up the Umbracos. What will happen now is that instead of seeing that upgrade wizard, we should see the installation wizard instead. So this will be a slightly different screen. And the first option we should be presented with will be the option to install a brand new admin user. Ta-da! Just like magic. So what we can do now is put in our brand new admin details. Now, what we want to do is click on the Customize button. So Customize is going to allow us to point out our existing database. Do not click Install. Clicking on Install will create a brand new database. We do not want this. So clicking on Configure or Customize, we want to pick our Microsoft SQL Server. So from here, we want to do our /SQL Server. Database name is V10. Login is SE. Password is a very secret password. Click on Continue. Ta-da! So what's going to happen now is Umbraco's pretty much not going to do anything because we've already upgraded the database. You can see it said installation is complete. It took all of about 5 seconds. And what will happen now is the CMS will magically load after 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! Boom. So as you can see, we're now in Umbraco. I've got rid of that annoying login issue. If I logged out and I try to log in again, I can use my new password and I'm off to the races. So if you're getting that auto legacy password issue because of that 7 to 9 upgrade, just do that and reset your password. As soon as you reset your password, you can then go into the CMS and you can start resetting everybody else's password. Job is a good one. At this step within our journey, we should have a fully working Umbraco vanilla website, and that website should be hooked up to our existing database that's successfully been upgraded to Umbraco V910, whatever you chose. Now the next step is to try and get our website working, the money shot. Now we basically have 2 different ways of trying to get our website up and running. We have the Big Bang approach, and if we know about architecture, we know that Big Bang is terrible. So with the Big Bang, what we can do is use something like the .Net Upgrade Assistant, which I'll talk about at the end of the video. We can try and upgrade all of our website or our class libraries all in one big go. When this happens, what we're going to do is be presented with 5,000, 10,000 warnings. Then we're going to have to go through our class library, start uncommenting things, start trying to fix bugs. Pretty much we're going to have to spend a couple of days just trying to get rid of the compiler errors. After we've done that, we're going to enable things, cross our fingers, hope things work, and then try and piece things together. Now, speaking from experience, this is a massive, frustrating process. It also takes much longer to try and get everything to work, and it's a lot riskier. So instead, I recommend you just get working one page at a time. So what we're going to do in this process is focus on a single page, copy the bits of code from our existing website into our new vanilla Umbraco build, and then one step at a time, we're going to get our pages up and running until eventually we've copied all the code from our old website into our new one, and we have a working website. Winner. Now, when it comes to picking the page, for the first one, I do not recommend you start with the home page. Typically on most websites, a home page is pretty complicated. So what I recommend is you pick a very simple document type, something like the content page. That's the one that I normally pick. Now, when it comes to getting the content page up and running and start to move some code around, what we can do in an easier fashion is to use a tool. So there are file and folder diff tools which allow you to copy files from one side to the other. The one that I use is called Beyond Compare. It's probably the best feature-rich folder compare tool on Windows. It's also useful when you're doing Git. Now, it is $30. If you've never used it before, you can download a fully working free trial for 30 days. If you just don't want to install paid-for software, because that's not your bag or your jam, you can use WinMerge instead. WinMerge is completely free. As you can see, we've got the file compare and we've got the folder compare. Nice. So let's have a look at how we're going to start using the diff tool. So what we want to do is get our existing class library, which has got all of our code in, and then within our new vanilla website, we want to create ourselves a brand new class library. Now the class library needs to be called exactly the same thing as it was in the existing website. So as you can see here, my class library is called jdj.core, and in my old website, it was also called jdj.core. So making sure that everything's named the same is basically going to allow the diff process to be much easier. Now what you want to do in your brand new class library, you want to make sure that it's .NET 5, .NET 6, so you don't need to worry about upgrading the project file or anything like that. You want to make sure that the assembly name, namespaces are all the same. You also then want to copy all of the folders. So you want to make sure that all the folders from old to new mirror. Now the benefit of doing this is that, say we want to copy all the files for the content page. Within my existing website, I can find my content page, right click on it, and then do copy to right. And as you can see, we've got the file which has been copied. Now I want to do the same again for my view model. So right here, copy to the right, copy to the right, boom. And then also we want to do the same for my view model. So tutorial, service, view model, they're the ones I care about. Copy to the right. Now what we're going to do in my new project is try and have a compile. Obviously these three files are not going to work because a number of things have changed within Umbraco. So let's have a look at what those changes are. After trying to recompile our new files, we're going to be hit with a number of issues. And the main things that you're going to have to worry about are some of the syntax and the controllers have changed. So pretty much every single one of your controllers will need a little bit of refactoring. So we can have a look at that in action within Beyond Compare. So as you can see, we've got my old homepage controller, and we can see we've got my updated homepage controller. So this is all up and running. So some of the things you're going to have to worry about is obviously the output cache attribute. That is no more. So you're going to have to think about completely redoing your caching. Now, as you can see, in old, we're using render MVC controller, and in new, we're just using render controller. That's a simple one. Now, in the old world, we didn't have to inject any dependencies, so we had no base type. In the new world, you can see that we need to pass in a logger, a composite view engine, and an Umbraco context accessor. So you're going to have to be messing around and start injecting brand new services into each and every one of your controllers. Now, when it actually comes to the controller itself, you can see that you need to put an I in front of your action results. Now, in the old one, we were passing in a content model. We don't need to do that anymore. If you want to instantiate your models builder model, we can use the current page object. We also have to pass in this I published fallback value. And then, as you can see, we've got current template, and in this one, I'm just going to return the view. Now, this is just one controller out of about 30. So as you can see, we're factoring all of these things so the code works before and after. It's pretty similar, however, there is some differences. Now, if we go back to our comparison list, I've used the classic Nando scale because whenever I rate things in life, I always do it by comparing a Nando's. So as you can see, I'd say that controller code is very tedious, it's going to take a while, but there's nothing really to worry about. Now, within Umbraco v9.10, the dependency injection container has changed from simple ejector to the .NET Core one, so all of your dependency injection configuration, you'll have to redo that. Now, there's been a few differences within your composers, so now you have to change the interface to iComposer rather than iUseComposer. Within .NET Core, expect to start changing your partial views. So all your partial views in your old website, most of them can now be put into view components. So view components can be asynchronous, which will speed up your web page rendering. This is probably going to be a bit more of a process because you might need to create controllers per view component. As you saw, output caching is no more in .NET framework, .NET Core, sorry. So you're going to have to think about completely redoing your caching strategy. Probably the tweaks for caching isn't too bad, but you are going to have to completely test all your website. Now, there is quite a lot of framework to core configuration changes. So web.config and global ASACs as no more. You're going to have to think about how you can move all your event handlers, that kind of stuff, from core into start and program and applications.json. A lot of the Umbraco API syntax has changed. So for example, Examiner Manager used to be a static class. Now we can access it through an interface. So there's a little tweaks like that. I expect to bump into them. Probably depending on what plugins you're using and your website. A lot of the old Umbraco plugins and packages have just dropped along the wayside. So all those community packages that worked in 7.8, developers can't be bothered to put them into .NET Core. So if you are using some plugin which is now no longer a thing, that can take a lot of work. That really caught me on my last one. Again, a number of .NET framework NuGet packages are no more. So I used the page list component and had to update that to something else. Again, I was using a reCAPTCHA to do my form submission checking. That's gone, had to change that. So this actually took me quite a long time. And then you'll have to probably change a bit of your models builder. So all the models builder configuration modes, they've changed a little bit. Again, you have to import them. And as you saw from our code example within the body on compare, you're going to have to start pushing in that iPublished value fallback into every single one of your models. So as you can see, there isn't just simply a one-click magic button which is going to upgrade everything. A lot of the tasks on this list, they are architectural changes. I do think in terms of Nando's, the plugins and the NuGet packages, they're probably the ones which are going to be extra hot, the ones that you should be aware of. However, if you've got a very simple site that doesn't really use plugins, your upgrade is just going to be a bit tedious, but it shouldn't be too bad. Before you get too far down that rabbit hole of refactoring and potentially pulling in different dependencies, you also want to consider your view. Now, my tip is just get your page working minus the header or the footer. So if we go back to our solution, what we'll see is if we open up the content page, is that at the top, you're probably going to get a number of compiler issues like that. So first thing we want to do is, boom, get rid of our reference to a layout. This means we can just focus on getting the content from the CMS working. It's going to look a bit funky because we won't have any CSS files or any JavaScript. However, getting this up and running first is going to be our first point of contact. So as soon as we do this, pull in all that dependencies, fix all our code, get it up and running, we want to then repeat the process, uncomment everything, and then get our layout referenced. With our layout referenced, go back to Beyond Compare, get our layout, find it, and then copy it over. Now, once we copy the layout over, you're probably going to have to fix a number of things. So there's been a few changes within the .NET Core to .NET Framework. First off, when you're trying to get layouts working, I recommend that you don't have a model or an inherit at the top of your layout. Just doing that is probably going to cause loads of issues, especially if you're trying to do other bits and bobs later on. Now, one of the more noticeable things that you'll probably need to consider within your layout is potentially you want to call view components. So putting your header and a footer now in a view component is much more optimal. The reason for this is these things can be done asynchronously. So while the underlining process handler is getting all the content to render your main content, in parallel, it can also then get all the logic to do the header and the footer. So putting your header and footer within view components in your layout is basically going to speed up your page rendering time. Now, one of the new things within .NET Core is that we also have these cache tag handlers. So if you've got your header and footer and they're not going to change too often, you probably want to wrap both of these within these two components. Now, if we go back to our checklist of things which have changed, if we go through that process of fixing every single document type one step at a time, we're going to have pretty much nailed a lot of the things on this list. So things like controllers, moving partial view references to components. We're probably going to get rid of our plugin and NuGet package issues. We're definitely going to fix all of our model builders. We're probably going to have got most of these ones as well. Now, as you can see, we still have a few bits and bobs left in this list. So just because you've gone through that process, don't forget about all the other important stuff. So let's do a quick whistle-stop tour so we can think about what we need to include. So first and foremost, we need to think about configuration. Configuration, you're going to have to probably manually move a lot of stuff. So first off, do you have any redirect rules? In framework, in all versions of Umbraco, we have web.config and we have the IIS rewrite module. You're going to have to change how that works now. Again, as you can see, we've got this application builder, so you might need to copy all of your redirects from old to new. Again, this is going to be a complete rewrite rather than a copy across. This is also the same for your routing rules. So wherever you put your routing rules, if you're English, you can then make sure you copy everything across. Again, this is going to be create from scratch probably rather than being able to copy between projects. When we're thinking about our routing rules, you also want to make sure that you have anything like an RSS feed, any APIs, and you also want to make sure that your XML sitemap is working between both. You also want to make sure that your dependency injection containers, everything that you've got from old to new, is working. I've done a video on dependency injection and how you can configure it, but yeah, you want to make sure that there is a difference and you just want to make sure you've got everything. Now, you also want to make sure that you don't have anything within the Umbraco boot up pipeline. So do you have any event handlers, notification handlers, anything that happens when an action is triggered within the CMS? If so, again, you need to make sure that you copy it from old to new. In the old world, things were called events. As you can see, in the new world, they're now called notification handlers. Also, I've done a video on that. But yeah, you'll need to make sure that you need to copy them across. And unfortunately, it's not just going to be a straight copy. You'll have to start recreating some of these things. Now, after you've got all your configuration, you want to think about backend. So do you have any custom backend screens, dashboards, sections, trees, or content apps? So any of those things you want to manually copy over, make sure they're working, make sure that any composers and components that you've created also can get copied across. Now, if you've come from Umbraco v7, you're not going to have anything like a composer or component. So again, this is where you've got a lot of rework because you're going to have to completely rewrite how a lot of functionality works. And aside from that, that's going to be kind of your main bulk of after page working events, what you need to fix. So that is generally my process of focus on getting all the pages to work, so the website's working, then think about all of these sundry different services that we need to get working, like config, backend services, APIs, that kind of stuff. I would be amiss to wrap this video up without talking about .NET Upgrade Assistant, because when I thought about originally upgrading Umbraco, I was going to use this. In the end, I didn't touch it at all. So .NET Upgrade Assistant, if you didn't know about it, tool created by Microsoft, which will help us, supposedly, upgrade from framework to .NET Core. Now, this is pretty brilliant if you're not trying to change architecture at the same time. Now, as you've seen throughout this video, it wasn't just a case of me upgrading .NET and removing like system.web and replacing it with the ASP.NET equivalent. A lot of the steps we have to follow, like changing constructor arguments, changing how we pass things into Umbraco Models Builder, moving things from partials into view components. These are big architectural changes. So no tool, unfortunately, is going to allow you to just run it and magically it's going to work. If you do try to do the .NET Upgrade Assistant, what you're going to do is get just loads of errors all at the same time, thousands of errors. Now, you could try and spend all your time trying to fix all the errors and make sure that the upgrade assistant runs without worry. However, from my experience, you're going to have a much less painful experience if you just go through that, making a change, copying a file over, fixing it, copying over its dependencies, fixing it, registering it. Now, even doing this one step at a time process seems very laborious, and it is. It's still going to be quicker and less stressful than being faced with thousands of errors. Now, you might think that I'm some sort of numbnuts, you don't want to listen to my advice. good for you, do what makes you happy. There is this tool that you can potentially use, which might make your life easier. It's not going to. Now, the other thing around the .NET Upgrade Assistant, obviously going from say 5 to 6, kind of that sort of stuff, is that this is the reason why I always say put all of your custom code within a separate class library, because putting things in its own class library is going to allow things like the .NET Upgrade Assistant to be more useful. Also means that when you're doing that copying from V8 to V9 or V10, that you can just use something like a beyond compare, and it's much easier to do the file comparison. Imagine if you had all your files dotted over different class libraries in your web project. Having everything just contained in that single library is going to make things much quicker. Pain. Now, if you are going through an upgrade and you are feeling stressed or you just want to talk about it, please let me know how your upgrade process and experience went below. For me, yeah, it was a bit more painful than I was hoping. However, I've got there, I made it through the tunnel, I saw the lights, and my website is now up and working. Now, if you have liked this video and you want to learn more about Umbraco, especially V10, because that's going to get released very shortly, then you know what to do. You want to click on the subscribe button, and that will convert you instantly into an absolute legend, and it will make you 27% more attractive to the opposite sex. It is a fact, people. It's not a fact. Otherwise, if you want to support me and help more people see my stupidness on YouTube, click the like button, because the YouTube algorithm will show my video to more people when you click like. Otherwise, if you haven't come across my book yet, Umbraco Mastery, it will basically have all the information on all the differences between V8 and V9 in a single book. It's only about $15. It's about 77% completed already, but you can buy a purchase now. Most of the information you need is going to be in that book, so it is a great reference if you want to upgrade. I highly recommend it, and of course I'm completely unbiased, even though that I'm the author of the book. Anyway, I hope you've had fun in this video. I hope you have fun in your upgrade. And until next time, happy coding.